Innovation Unplugged from the Alabama Community College System's Innovation Center takes you inside Alabama's workforce development. Join us for enlightening conversations with community leaders and industry experts showcasing experiences, addressing key issues, and celebrating successes in the workforce initiatives across the state.
Welcome back to Innovation Unplugged, and I'm Brandi Merrill. I'm the Director of Curriculum Design for the Innovation Center, and we have...
I'm Kailah Dozier, and I'm the Marketing Director for the Innovation Center.
And today we are very, very lucky to have a sweet lady who came to us not too long ago with a need. And so will you introduce yourself to the Innovation Unplugged audience?
Absolutely, Brandi. Thank you. I'm Kaye Whitener. I am the Director of Operations for the Floor Covering Education Foundation.
We are so excited. So I'm just going to ask how we met. I think the first time we met in person was maybe in Decatur. Mm-hmm. And I think we had a mutual acquaintance friend who we've actually had on the podcast previously. Tell us how you got connected with the Innovation Center and who did that and how did you first find out and all those good things.
All those good things. I think it was about a year ago that we met in person. You know, I don't know. I met Gary. The Decatur Commerce, Chamber of Commerce, sorry, guys. Yeah. I had a connection through them, and they allowed me the opportunity to come in and sit down and do a presentation for colleges as well as the Innovation Center had representation there, and also the floor covering dealers in the area were invited to participate so they could hear from us about the program that we'd created through the college system. So that's where I met Gary, and then it kind of went from there. And conversations afterwards were, look, you've got to meet the Innovation Center. We've got to talk to you about the group and what they're doing and how that can align with the Floor Covering Education Foundation. And so that's just kind of how it started. And it's hard to believe it's probably now close to 2 years ago since we had that initial meeting and then met with you guys last year.
Yeah. And we're super excited. Just, and I know you know, so we just wrapped filming for flooring with a lot of Kaye's connections. And I'll tell you, this is what really kind of sets up any project that we do. And I have bragged on you so many times, but just for our listeners,
you? We'll settle up later.
All right. So just for the listeners to understand, like the impact that one person can have. I want to go into like what the need was that drove you to us or you to kind of your mission. But I also want to brag on you a second because you really were crucial and instrumental in this really taking off in terms of the Innovation Center being able to develop this course for you all. And the way that you did that, you came in and you said, when we said we need to build a task force, you said, I got it. And you said, I know, here's this person. You called all of those people or you emailed all those, you made all of those connections and you basically handed this task force to us on a silver platter. We couldn't lose. I mean, there was absolutely no way we could mess this up because you took charge of that and you said, here are all the players, here are all the people. What else do you need from me? And I mean, you just did a spectacular job. It was truly awesome. So thank you for that because you have made the build side of things really easy and smooth.
Well, it was great being here today. Thank you, everybody. Well, that's all we needed to say, and we're ready to go.
Seriously, though, I mean, you are a testimony to, just how when somebody has a passion for something and to see something happen, willing to just kind of take charge and make it happen. So to that, I'll ask this question. What is the mission? So we know what we are building, and we can get into all those specifics later. But tell us how you ended up with us and what the ask was and what the need is out there.
If it's okay, I'll start by telling you a little bit about the Floor Covering Education Foundation, who we are, why we exist, what our mission and our purpose is, and that'll kind of drive some of this to understand. If this is, I know this is going to be hard to believe, especially when you look at me and my age, but this is my 40th year in this industry. I'm a second generation flooring professional. My dad was in the flooring industry, but we're a very antiquated industry. We'd never put anything together to address the installation crisis, which we're all feeling. Any trade skill is, construction-related trades. We're even seeing that in the restaurant industry, and other industries are hurting right now because we've not put platforms in place to bring a new generation into these different career opportunities. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to tell you, Brandi, that there was this great design that we had in our mind when we put the foundation together and how we would go about and, execute this plan. We had no idea what was going to come from it, but we just knew that the ultimate mission and the purpose had to be met if our industry is going to survive in the future. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned passion. I'm very passionate about this industry for a lot of reasons. And in fact, spending 40 years in this as a female, which historically is a male-dominated industry, right, was not an easy task to overcome. But what has happened over the course of my career is I've seen all the pathways that somebody has the opportunity to explore, and it's because of the floor covering industry. Mm-hmm. I had, I think it was a reporter a couple of years ago when we first started the foundation asked me, why are you so passionate about, the education, the training side of this, or with what you're doing, why are you not retired and laying on a beach somewhere enjoying?
That's a $1 million question.
Well, first of all, I don't have a beach body, so that's not going to happen. But the side of this is I started to give my planned answer. Yeah. It's a great industry. There's a lot of money that you can make in the career pathways, and there's a lot of opportunity. And I just stopped because it hit me like 2 years prior to that. My dad had passed away. Mm-hmm. And I said, all of that's true, but honestly, this is living a legacy for him, mm-hmm, because he loved the industry so much. We're a relationship industry. Mm-hmm. That's how we thrive. That's how we exist. I don't care what aspect of the industry you're in. It's about building relationships, and it always has been. And so it just kind of put it in perspective to me. I don't know if you have an epiphany or what it is, sure, but it was right. It's a relationship. It's my relationship with my dad, but mm-hmm, I also want my sons have both worked in the industry, and I want to see a new generation have the opportunities that we've had. So the reason the foundation was put together was that the Floor Covering Leadership Council all came together in 2018 and they commissioned a group called the Blackstone Group. Mm-hmm. So the Blackstone Group is a group out of Chicago and New York, and they come in and they did an assessment of our industry, and they identified two major things. I mean, there's a lot more problems in our industry, but two major things that we had to address then is that we're losing between 4,000 to 6,000 installers each year for the next 10 years.
Wow.
And our average age installer is 56 years old.
Yep.
Now, we're in line with the other trades.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because that's the same thing, but we didn't realize that. We always thought, okay, because we've never told our story, we've never been present in the education platform, we've got to do something. Mm-hmm. So the World Floor Covering Association, their executive board, which is made up of independent retail dealers, all came together and they said, okay, guys, if we're a trade organization that truly support our industry, we've got to put money in this and get started and have a foundation that can attack this and bring us into a new world that we have to bring a new generation in. And so they went and they sat down with Shaw Industries, with Mohawk Industries, and with Engineered Floors, and all of them came together and said, okay, we'll start a 501c3 foundation for our industry, which, by the way, is a first. It's a first that the whole industry came together to support something.
Wow.
That was announced in January of 2020, and COVID happened.
Wow, what timing!
Yeah, I mean, they had asked me in October of 2019, did I want to be a part of that? And I'm like, absolutely. This is something that just is in my wheelhouse that I love to be a part of. And just not for my legacy, not for me, but I want to see a new generation come in and get the opportunities. They don't know we exist.
Yeah.
When I sit and we go through, our executive director, and I've talked about this, he addressed a whole group of high school students who were going through construction trade. So they were all going into skilled trades somewhere. And he mentions, did you ever think about the floor covering industry? And silence in the whole room. They all look around. And finally, one guy raises his hand and he says, is that a thing? I mean, that's how bad it is that we've not told our own story. And we've allowed others to tell our story.
Sure.
So we've allowed, I won't name names, but we've allowed companies to go out and market, buy this much floor, and get installation free. Well, the reality is that tells a whole consumer, audience that has no value.
Right.
And it's just the opposite. That product can't perform unless it has a quality installation. So we started working together. And then in 2021, we started meeting with the Technical College System of Georgia. We brought in 3 training associations within our industry, and we built out a basic floor covering installation program. And through the process of this, we don't create content. I think the Floor Covering Education Foundation, we get to be the bridge between that new generation, whether that's in the education platform or not, and our industry. Because our industry can be their own worst enemies most days. So they don't know what they don't know. And so we've been able to spend 24/7 focused on this and how we can go about it. And so when I met with Gary, I was introducing this floor covering program that we put together. And then he tells me about all the neat, exciting things the Innovation Center has put together, and your governor and what he's, committed to helping the state of Alabama do. And we wanted to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that was one thing that kind of drew us in. Of course, it was an easy yes, and we very rarely, we talk about this all the time, we very rarely say no to anything because it all sounds good. But yours was really touching, one, because of the vastness of the need, and because it was very similar to what we hear from all across, which is we really just want to pass down this generational knowledge and create awareness, and you talked about like being that bridge between, and we view ourselves a little bit at the Innovation Center as being a bridge between like industry and the colleges sometimes, or maybe we're a bridge between the system office and a college, or sometimes we're just a bridge internally. A lot of times we view ourselves in kind of that role too, depending, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that you hit on just how you already had a process in place, and then you hear about something new going on in another state. And we appreciate the fact that you were like, okay, it's not my same process that I've done the last couple years. How can we work together to figure out this need, this issue, to better serve the industry together? And that, I think, this is why the main reason we even invited you onto this podcast, because we want everyone to know that partnerships look different. They unfold in many different ways, but if you have the right people at the table working together to solve an issue, we can figure it out. And so would you speak a little bit to, not to air everything or, all the behind the scenes things, but some of the challenges of just you being a conduit and a communicator of your industry, working with another team that wants to serve you guys, but it's not perfect in the beginning, and there's things you have to work out. So could you speak a little bit to those challenges of just how the partnership unfolded to make it successful for you guys?
I think for us, we didn't know what we didn't know. And so there were doors we didn't know we probably shouldn't be knocking on, and that we were knocking on, because we had been put in charge of a huge mountain. I describe our industry a lot of times because we're very siloed. So you have your manufacturers that work separately than your suppliers and your distributors and suppliers work separately than your independent retail dealers who work separately than your big box or your union versus non-union. And when we could really go into so many areas of competition, that the idea of bringing everybody together just in a common interest is very hard, because we're trying to, I describe it as we're trying to take a submarine and turn it in a swimming pool. That's what I feel like some days that we're trying to do. But in the very beginning, and I thank you for all your kind words and everything, and I appreciate it, because we spent a lot of time in the very beginning as an industry. How can we look at this that we get to be agnostic. If it lifts the industry, and that's been a new area for us, because we usually, like I said, work in one of those silos, but we really got to look at the story behind each of them and what we could do to work together. So we started working with the technical college system of Georgia, and they helped guide us in the very beginning. So as an industry, I think what happens in most industries, they know they have problems. They know they have issues. They have, little pockets that want to address it and take care of it, but they can't take on the whole responsibility and cost to fix it for the industry if the industry is not willing to come together and focus on this.
Sure.
And so I think that's, for us, what was different was that the decision to have the great big three manufacturers of our industry come together and say, yes, we will spearhead this with our industry. Everybody's going to have to take a role in this and work together. Then having their name behind us gave us a lot of leverage. When we started building this together and then talking to the college system, like I said, I'd like to tell you we had this big plan, and here's Kaye's idea here, and it worked, and it was great, and then here's what we do, A, B, and C.
Yeah.
I'm a believer that there are things that there's right times.
Absolutely.
There are doors that open at the time they're supposed to open, and don't kick the one down to get it open. If it's not opening for you, just go around it and figure out another way. But I think for us, what happened was we were not the only ones. We were not the only industry screaming, we've got to have a new generation of workers. So that communication was already on the television. Mike Rowe has done a phenomenal job over the last 16 years. He's been preaching this for 16 years.
The skills, yeah.
And he walked out. I was part of a convention a couple years ago that he was addressing 2,000 independent retail dealers. And he knew he was there to address the installation crisis. And he walks out, and only as Mike Rowe can do, but he looks around and he looks at this whole audience. And this was made up of independent retail dealers, manufacturers, suppliers. Everybody was represented that was at every avenue of our industry. And he said, there's roughly 350 million people in the U.S., and they all walk on floors. Mm-hmm. And you've got a problem. Why? Mm-hmm. It was just an arrow back into the heart of the industry of why working together is so important.
Yeah. I think because you were so willing, you and your industry were so willing to take something that you began somewhere else, that started somewhere else. It looked one way over there, but it's okay. Y'all were open to say, it's okay. It can look different over here, because Innovation Center builds differently. Our Skills for Success courses are rapid. They're hybrid model where some is online and some is in person. And that's not really that traditional type of training that y'all were doing elsewhere or supporting elsewhere, but you were like, hey, whatever works, let's agree to what this will look like, because ultimately, if what we get out the back end of this and the outcome is that we have, like you said, elevated our industry and skilled workers at the same time, then it's a win, regardless of how it's done, as long as the product is still the same. So I think you specifically were so open to that, and we're not really rigid in it has to be, this is the only way it could work, and here we are over here kind of throwing caution to the wind, saying, hey, this is how we run. And ultimately we agreed, and off we went. I think the partnerships also that you just mentioned is huge, because I want you to kind of speak to that. So we just went and filmed so let me kind of tell the audience, if they're new listeners, kind of how we develop Skills for Success courses. So I mentioned that, you were instrumental in getting our task force started. Not only that, but you pointed us in the right direction for our subject matter
blackmail
expert.
material works really well in those cases, just so you know.
It's a little hard to sit on this pocket back here since it's nice and full these days. Anyway, so, ultimately leading us to subject matter expert, helping build the task force. So here are all the people that are going to be crucial in developing this content, because we're not going to build something that already exists out there. We're not going to tap a resource that's a book or a textbook. We're going to take what people say about whatever that content is, and that's how we're going to flesh it out. So ultimately, what's being taught in Skills for Success courses is coming from the people who say, this is what the skill is that, we need. Here's what the training needs to be. So during that development process, whether it's the content writing, then, ultimately at the end, there's the designing of the course, which looks, fabulous and blingy and all this kind of stuff, very gamified. But squarely almost in the middle of that is the filming. And what I think that is one of the other things that really kind of sets apart these courses is that we can capture things on camera that books cannot do. And so I know when we were talking, and you alluded to this a minute ago, but when we were talking prior to filming, you were talking about the really kind of the generational aspect of things. And so we were kind of talking through what that would look like. And then in that same conversation, you said, here is, and this was a business and a guy that was going to give up his time, his day, his resources, his everything to allow us to come film the actual installation and all of these things, capturing all the how-tos and all these things. But what you said during that conversation was so crucial, because you said, you know what, don't worry about a thing. We're going to provide everything. So can you speak to kind of what that looked like and what was ultimately sent to this business owner to support this project and for floor covering?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I think is so important for other industries to understand is they try to navigate this environment we're in, and we're all battling a limited amount of talent that's available, and so we all want to attract somebody. But the floor covering industry has not really tapped into everybody, and had to ask companies over and over again to be donors of this and that. I'm going to be a little bit biased here and think that our industry is so on board and so ready to see us advance into this new generation, this new future, that they're willing to help. Yeah. I mean, it's just a phone call. We've got some great companies out here that, historically do a lot to help bring people into the industry, but it just takes a phone call. And it takes somebody saying, look, here's a need. When we started our very first college program, and I think, Brandi, you alluded to it a little bit while ago, the flexibility. Yeah. Again, I'd like to say it was just in this master design that's what we would be. But after we started talking to different colleges, they all operate differently. Mm-hmm. I think they're as siloed as the flooring industry, and the more I get into it, the more I'm believing that to be true. And so we knew that I couldn't just hand you a box of stuff and say, here's what I need you to do. Call me when you've got the students ready to go to work. We wanted to be a part of that, because not only does it lift the industry and these businesses and everybody that works in our industry, we wanted to kind of what is the word I want to use? We wanted to elevate this. Because let's be honest, if you go to talk to anybody about, hey, would you like to be a flooring installer? The first thing they're going to do, if they even know it's a thing, is they're going to roll their eyes at you and go, really? So I like to tell the story about a doctor. She took her husband to a dinner party, a Christmas dinner party one night, and they're all talking with the other doctors, and you've got your degree people in the room, and look, we're about education, that's for sure. We're just a different way of teaching. But somebody asked her husband, said, "What do you do for a living?" And he said, "Well, I install floors." And you could just see, kind of one of those. But the guy next to him said, "Didn't you see the Lamborghini you drove up in?" The amount of money in this career is amazing. Yeah. And so we just needed to tell our story, and that's what we're doing on behalf of our industry. Yeah. So having this opportunity with an online course, that's not been done before, not showing our industry and the innovation side of this, and the ability to kind of meet a student where they are. How could you not be excited about that? And there were barriers. We know that. We talked about it.
And we worked through them. Figured it out.
It wasn't personal and never will be. It's, about the end goal. Absolutely. And what is the end goal? The end goal for the Floor Covering Education Foundation is that we build this pathway and this platform to a new generation, or even an existing generation that may not know we exist and they want to elevate their career pathway. We want to take the word installer and make it a craft. It's a craftsman. Yeah. It's a craftswoman.
Absolutely.
Another side of that is just the idea of having a VR or a gaming system that represents our industry is exciting, because there's not a lot of industries out there that's doing this, even though I got a lot of older people in our industry, not me, but that say you can't teach this online. Yeah. And we
hear that a lot.
I was probably, in the back of my mind, I didn't say it. Yeah. Was thinking, man, this can be hard. Because we're such a touch and feel application. But then I was able to see some of the things you'd already put together. And we talk about the heavy equipment, moving in the butchery class. And, we just quickly realized, my gosh, think about this aspect of it. That task force that was put together is industry leaders. There was no common reason for them to participate except for the betterment of our industry. They're not self-serving in any way.
And they were not paid. No, it was completely voluntary.
But these are the best of the best. And they, the companies who participated in that had no financial recourse for this, except that it does present quality installation, a basic installation, and then give somebody a pathway to do it right versus, I hate to say it, but we fog mirrors a lot in our industry. We just send somebody out for the sake of sending somebody out. And it's time our industry, along with this foundation, we're putting quality training out here. We're putting quality installation methods. We're going through all the processes, but we're going to have to start demanding quality from the installers that are already out in the field.
Yeah. I think one cool thing I see where, if this had already been developed and you're trying to right the ship, that we were saying, well, that's a struggle in and of itself. But here it seems in this state, we are creating this standardized approach from the beginning. So you didn't have that barrier or that challenge to kind of undo what's already been happening, is that we get to kind of be there on the ground floor. And I think it's going to be really cool. I want Kailah to talk about the marketing side of things. When this course is done, in just a little bit, and it launches, and we already have Drake State is going to be our pilot college, and that's kind of the way these Skills for Success courses work. Once they're ready to go, we have one of the 24 community colleges is our pilot, and so they're there to kind of lead the path of the training, because ultimately we build it, and then we get to watch it go because we give it away. We give it away to all the colleges for them to go serve the people in their community and train and support the businesses. But the coolest thing is to get to watch not only the social media side of things, but then the awareness, because I think that's what you really talked about early on. And so I think from the marketing perspective, that's going to be a very soon thing to happen for this course. So what do you think?
Absolutely. Well, I feel like we're already doing that
Yeah.
right here, because as you were speaking just a few minutes ago about generational, impact, and not only for your industry, but for people that don't even know they're going to be a part of your industry one day. I'm sitting here thinking like, wow, I'm so thankful to be a part of this. And we hear your story in different forms with other industries, and it's just told a little bit differently. And so I will say that this podcast has allowed people to share their story, and it might be through the lens of the Innovation Center and through Skills for Success, but you are a walking testimony for your industry. And so that marketing is already taking place. So when the flooring course is piloted and ready to roll, we are going to say, hey, those of you that missed the podcast with Kaye, go back and listen to it and hear the history of how it started and where we're going. And we look forward to, again, reaching back out and saying, hey, what does it look like now? How has this changed or impacted the industry, specifically in Alabama? But for our colleges too, this is another way for them to showcase that the community college in their area is the answer for all the needs of just different things that they may have in their community. And although it may look a little different at Drake State that it does at Coastal in the Mobile area and Bishop State in Mobile, the needs are still there, and there's people that need to serve those needs. And so that, I don't know, just this whole pairing of a foundation, an industry advocating for their wants and their needs, but then having the conduit of a local community college, 24 across the state, 130 locations. That's a big deal, and that's a big footprint. And so the marketing side of that, it's easy to sell. The hard part,
does a really, really good job
the
with
hard part is literally just having manpower and passion and those that follow through and hear the heart behind the why and say, I may not have all the answers, but I'm going to help you find them, and we're going to get these people to work and ready to go. And so specifically like with, graphic design and strategies of radio or commercials or whatever it may be, there's always room for that, and that will take place. And we may call on you and say, hey, who are some businesses that you've partnered with, or how can we walk alongside you and continue to tell that story so that those communities are aware of the services in their areas. So
I think what's really interesting is in the very beginning of the foundation, the first thing that we knew, we had to put a face on this because, again, someone else has been telling our story. We've not told our story. And so we had hired a wonderful marketing company. And I think, Brandi, you mentioned it a while ago. We share. That's a partnership. A partnership is not one-sided, and it's what you're going to get out of it, but it's what together you're able to accumulate and what you're able to accomplish. And this is the first time in my life coming in this role. I hate nonprofits. I hate them with a passion from the sense of I hate having to always beg for money or whatever. But our industry's been amazing about being a part of that. But what I do love is that I do have no ulterior motive but to accomplish what we're doing. And one of the students, and one of our very first students that applied for a program in Dalton, Georgia that we had, he sent me a video 6 months after he got out of class, and he is in Cincinnati. That's where he lives. So he actually came to Dalton, Georgia for 10 weeks and stayed in an apartment and then drove home on the weekends. But he said, I didn't have a lot of career choices where I was. And so he said, I really think this is something I'd like to do. And by the time he finished the 10 weeks, he actually came to graduation in a suit. Wow. He was so proud of what he had learned and the skill level. And, again, he was ready to go out and now do on-the-job training. So he's been out 6 months, and I get a video from him, and he's got a hard hat on. He's working for a commercial company. He says, I'm at the office today, and he was just so proud. He was showing me all the hard work that he had applied. He learned and he had applied. And at the very end of that video, he says, Miss Kaye, please tell the industry and everybody that had a help this program, thank you, because it's changed my life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And when you hear those words back, again, I think we all work, for different reasons, and we're part of different organizations for this. But when you really get to see something that takes somebody that didn't think they had a chance to make a good living, actually doing it, and to hear them say it changed my life, and the other side of it, so the marketing stuff, I know I a lot of times don't finish the circle I'm in, but we developed a lot of their stories of young people in our industry who are successful. Marquise Wright, who comes in, he's 30 years old now, and he had 4 crews in Jacksonville, Florida, and he said, when I learned from my mentor that I could make $200,000 a year legally in this career path, he said, I knew that's what I needed to do. Marquise opened up his very first brick and mortar store in Jacksonville, Florida this past year. Yeah. And so you
life
get
changing.
You don't just go and file, or send emails, or you actually get to meet these people that it is making a difference in their life. But when I see 13 to 16% females now entering our industry, and what they're achieving and what they're getting to see. Because whether you realize this or whether you even think about floor covering this way, it's a design. Everything is about design. So HGTV has really helped drive some of that awareness. But we appreciate the opportunity. Look, we didn't have all the answers. I still don't have all the answers. We have to have a goal, and that was important, that we meet the goal. And to meet the goal, then that meant I needed to adapt. And so we've done that in different colleges as well that we're working at. Yeah. We started in 2023 with our first colleges outside of our program we built in 2022. When we closed out 2023, we have 5 colleges running the program. Right now I have 8. I just see more and more opportunities. And They're not all running it the same. Yeah. Yeah. It's again, we're trying to meet the college where they're at and help build a platform and a program that can bring this new generation in.
I think you said 8 colleges. So in just a minute, it'll be really cool to have you back again and you say, we're now on 32. Because you take 24 and add it to that 8. And that'll be a really cool experience to watch that really just kind of take off and prosper like that. I can't wait to see what the end result
I can't
looks like.
wait to be able to show our industry what Alabama has been able to create and how you've taken our idea and you've taken our direction and our help with this and how you've elevated it into something that's so innovative. So I'm excited about that.
We are too. We can't wait. Kailah, do you have anything you want to ask Kaye before we let her off the hook for the last Innovation Unplugged here?
I think we've covered a lot. I just want to say thank you, and that I want your audience to hear that you are a huge advocate for them. And
let's start it. Let's say that.
Yes.
It's we've got an industry full of people that feel like I do, that this is important for the future of our industry, because we really do love our industry. We're a family, we fight, but we've got a story to tell that we want to tell the next generation. But we also want to ensure that the people coming into this have the quality education and training that they need to be successful And that's what it's all about.
Well,
love
thank
it.
you for letting us be a part of your story. It has been an honor to get to know you, and it's still just beginning. There's so much more to be done, and so it's exciting just to sit here and talk through all of those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for coming today.
Welcome.
We appreciate it. All right. Thanks for tuning in for Innovation Unplugged. Please be sure and like, subscribe, and follow.